Welcome to today's show. I am your host, Eric Darnley Small. If you guys like what you see here, please consider liking and subscribing and clicking the bell to notify yourself if there is new content being uploaded. I try and do new videos at least twice a month. I'm working on getting more out there. In addition, on today's show, I'm going to reference a lot of articles that I'm using and for reference, and I put links to those on my Mastodon at mastodon.vtip.me/@ what you missed. And I encourage you all to read the entire articles, not just the portions that I am referencing, because the articles are excellent. That's why I picked them, and they're worth reading. So on today's show, I've been spending a lot of time talking about Donald Trump and what I think is happening, but with the right. But on today's show, there's a lot of interesting things happening on the left. And as the election is over and more people are doing interviews and they're beginning to cull through the data, we're beginning to get a better picture about what happened with the party and with this loss. And more importantly, and this is the most important thing other than party, is we're beginning to see the mentality of the American people. All of it is very troubling, but I think very useful. But this show is being recorded on Sunday the 5th. It will be uploaded on Monday the 6th. And the reason why I bring that up is because I was really motivated to do today's show. I planned on doing it anyway. This is the first one of the new year. By the way, Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you guys had a joyous and wonderful new year in 2025, welcoming in 2025. But I was watching Fareed Zakaria GPS. And if you've ever been to this channel before and watched my videos, you'll know I am a Fareed Zakaria fan. I am a big supporter of his journalism. I think he's smart. I think he is sharp. I think if you want to learn about international news, if you want to learn just about anything, he's probably one of the most skilled, sharpest minds in journalism today. I wouldn't say you can't beat him, but he's at the top of my list. However, he is a Thatcherite, I think. I think he is a Ronald Reagan type of conservative. I don't know if he's ever said that, but if you've watched him long enough, you can tell. And I always have said that, particularly when you have people who are first or second generation, or even just come here from other countries, you'll find this in Cubans, is that they have a hatred for government, particularly large government, particularly socialism, because they come from countries where government is a total mess. It is inefficient, it is bloated, and it creates for the people below it a total nightmare. India, I think, is famous for that, particularly if you're looking to start a business. The bureaucratic nightmare is horrendous. And a lot of people remember India, comes out of the modern India today, comes out of Great Britain, right? The British Empire owned basically or colonized India and then broke off after Mahatma Gandhi and a whole lot of other things that I don't want to go into. I'm starting to go off the track. But anyway, so you have people who have a love affair with America and Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher because they believed in a small government, supposedly. They believed in a government that was for the people and that was had very few regulations, almost libertarian-like, and was small and efficient and all these kinds of things, or so they say. Of course, if you're someone from the left, you're not a huge fan of Reagan or of Margaret Thatcher because of what their policies did for people who are working people, struggling people. So I still believe that you got to listen to all different kinds of people, and Fareed Zakaria is one of those people I would listen to. However, on today's show, Sunday's show, he took a meat axe, not to the Democratic Party, but to progressives. Remember, progressivism, like conservatism, is an ideology. So he's not going after the party in so much as he's going after the party's ideology, at least the progressive part of it. And he used the term woke, which got me up and sort of screaming at the TV. And anyone who uses the term woke as a way of a pejorative or of an attack on the left, I know is now not really being ideologically, um, I don't know if I want to use the word fair, but it's certainly not using what I would think is the kind of sense that I would expect someone like Fareed Zakaria would use. Wokeism, again, is a term that I have no idea that Fareed could even define it. What the right has made it into is somewhat akin to, what Hillary Clinton, what they made Hillary Clinton's deplorable into. They created a whole new life for this word woke. In my mind, it is everything that is anti-racist, that is about civil rights, about the rights package that came out of the 1960s and out of the everything that is about looking at and looking at history in a way other than European lens, being aware of and awoken to the idea of social justice and the inequalities and all of these other things, right? So he says that that's the problem. And he references his article to look into. And I'm not going to have the link here. Oops, I thought I fixed this. Give me 1 second here. There it is. I'm not going to have the article here, but I will have the article come up in a minute. Now, hold on a second. Give me 1 second here. So this is the article that Fareed refers to and wants people to go to. The crisis of democracy is really a crisis for the left. And in his video, he goes into a whole rigmarole about the, what's happening in the world today and how the entire country is moving to the right and not to the left. I would argue, and part of my problem with his analysis, again, he compares New York and Florida. The story regarding Florida and the mess that is to come is unfolding as we speak. I mean, he's coming to this like it's a conclusion. Remember, Florida got an influx, along with Texas, got an influx of people who left New York and went to Florida to for COVID. That's majorly the reason why you had this huge amount of people leave New York City and head to Florida is over COVID, Texas as well. And the fact of the matter is, if you bought during that time, 2000, you bought at the height of the market. There was a report that came out recently that indicated that in 2024, the entire year, only 2 markets saw prices go down and the sales go down. And that was in Florida. The 2 markets, the 2 locations were in Florida. That basically says that people are willing to lose money to sell their places in Florida. People are leaving Florida in droves. And if you bought a house, or if you were a retiree and bought your house years ago, and maybe your grandchildren are living there now, your children are living there, or you're living there hoping and thinking you would retire forever in this heaven, you have made and you have come to realize this was a big mistake. The condo collapse, housing collapse is in its infancy, but all indications are, beginning particularly of this year and part of last year, is that Florida is on its way for a huge housing collapse. And I am going to do a video regarding that. I've done videos already about what's going on. I believe real estate is in problems, New York too. But again, because of, in Fareed's show, there's so less money available as a catch-all to protect, any kind of a crisis. And because Florida has done nothing to deal with, or I wouldn't say nothing, but let's just say their governor has decided to call climate change woke. They are beginning to get hit now with a huge climate change disaster. And one could argue, I think very strongly, that the lack of doing something about this for the last 10 to 20 years is going to be the cause of all of the disaster and all of the nightmare that is coming in Florida. And while you have this woke and bloated regulation and these states that all have all this heavy regulation, that Fareed decries in his video, if you had that in Florida, maybe you wouldn't have the kind of collapse that is coming and the problems in the housing market that is coming, because these problems were known for that 30 years. The climate issues that are coming were known for 30 years. And instead of doing something about it, they decided to call it woke. Same thing in Texas. You're seeing a lot of people fleeing Texas, selling their homes. San Antonio, which was a huge explosion during COVID, is having difficulty. People are selling and getting out for the same reasons. So my only take is, and of course, nothing has come of, according to Fareed, nothing has come of all the spending that New York has done. Well, I would disagree with that. You do. If you were rich, you didn't see any of it. All you saw were more fees and taxes. And I'm going to do a video, I think, I'm sort of pulling it together, that New York is probably in danger of turning red, particularly in its governorship. New Jersey as well. Remember, this year is a governor's race in New Jersey. Very, very big possibility, I think, that they may turn red again, because if you were rich and you had money, you didn't see anything for that. But if you were poor, you saw stuff like universal health care. And yes, every American is covered under healthcare. In New York, you saw minimum wage increases. You saw new housing. You saw an infrastructure building. You saw an expansion of the train stations. The train stations in New York, while it gets a bad rap, it is the most extensive and cheapest. I've been to Washington, D.C. recently, and L.A. Both of them, they may be cheaper, but you cannot go as far and as wide on their train systems, paying a single fee as you can in New York. $2.90 will get you from here all the way, almost all the way, to Scarsdale, which is pretty damn far. $2.90 is the price. And if you are old or elderly, you can go pretty far with Accessoride on $2.90. You can go, I think, all the way as close to upstate as you can get. So yeah, if you're rich and if you're wealthy and if you're probably middle class or upper middle class, all you saw was the negative sides of that. But if you were poor, if you were someone struggling, if you were someone living on the streets or whatnot, there are shelters here. There's all kind of benefits. Do I believe that it's overdone? Yes, it is overdone to some extent. Do I believe that they would be wise to pull back? I've said before, in a long time, California, the taxes are too high. It's ridiculous. So there's much to be criticized about New York. But this idea that the ideology of progressivism is falling to the ideology of the conservatism, as if conservative turns out to have been right all along, is bullcrap. And I'm going to go into that right now. Good segue into this article in today's show, which is the problem with the Democratic Party. After just defending them in progressivism, I'm going to go into big problems that are going on in the Democrats. I just said that there's a good chance that New York and California and New Jersey could turn blue, could turn red. I would say I would not be surprised by that. Anyone who is in New York knows that New Yorkers are going to begin to see congestion pricing, which has got New Jerseyans and New Yorkers apoplectic. They are absolutely screaming, yelling mad about it. And our New York governor, who I'm not a fan of, Kathy Hochul, has pushed this through, and coming today, when this video airs, people will be paying more money to get into Midtown Manhattan. And folks are not happy about it. And usually when the people are not happy, and I'm talking about both middle-class people, probably mostly middle-class people are the ones that are the most unhappy. That is the recipe for change. Remember, movements happen in the middle class, if there is a middle class. Usually throughout history, particularly in Europe, has only been the upper class and then everybody else. Only in the United States during, the height of American hegemony and, when America was really firing on all cylinders in the 50s and so into the 60s, you had a nice, big, thick middle class. And that was a problem for conservatives because uprisings happen in the middle class. I learned that early on in a sociology class. But again, Sorry, guys, I digress. I'm going off on the topic. So let me get into this article about the problem with Democrats. More election data shows the depths of the Dems' despair. And this is excellent reporting that I'm going to go into, but let me just go into the program notes for today. Another Democrat flips to become a Republican. We're going to go back to Florida for a minute because I think it's really important to talk about that. Trump voters hope Trump won't do what he says he will do. This is the love scam. This is the what conservatism has become. And while progressivism has a lot of problems, conservatism is a complete mess. It is a total and complete mess. New poll finds more reason for alarm amongst Democrats. And then my final thoughts and takeaways. So I just want to go through this very briefly. I wasn't going to go into a big thing on this initially, but I feel like I need to talk about this because it is something that should be talked about and addressed and looked at. And this is having a little technical thing here, guys, but hold on one second. This is a story worth addressing, and I'm going to also talk about another story I want to discuss as well. But let me just hold on a second. So, 2 Democrats leave the party to join the GOP. And this is an article. Links will be in my Mastodon. I don't have it displayed right here because I sort of rushed this. But it says, Florida State Representative Hillary Castle of Dana Beach announced her switch from the Democratic to the Republican Party. This marks the second Democratic state lawmaker to switch political parties this month, following Tampa Representative Suzanne Valdez change on December 9th. In her formal statement, Castle framed the decision around several key themes. She emphasized her role as both a mother and a Jewish woman, expressing desire to build a world where our children are judged on their character and their actions, not their labels. Castle specifically cited growing concerns about the Democratic Party's stance on Israel, pointing to what she described as a failure of unequivocal support of Israel and its willingness to tolerate extreme progressive voices that justify or condone acts of terrorism. She also highlighted frustration with the party's ability to relate to everyday Floridians. So, let's be clear here. Joe Biden gave bombs to Israel to take on the Hamas and to support Israel. The Democratic Party writ large supported Israel. She's leaving the Democratic Party because they don't support Israel enough. If you think I really believe that, then I got a bridge to sell you. This is capitulation to what I think this person sees as this is a way to remain in office and remain relevant. And, look, am I going to judge this people or whatnot? No, but I really think it's important to really look at where Democrats are because unfortunately, people are looking to Democrats to save this country from Donald Trump and the American and the carnage that is to come. And I'm sorry, and I hate to disappoint folks, but the Democratic Party is nowhere near equipped to take on the Republican Party and to save the Republic. It is a complete and a total mess and people are going to be extremely disappointed in the Democratic Party if they think that they are equipped to do this. They have never been equipped to do this, and I've talked about that before in other videos. But I also want to get to this point of, I'm just looking down here because I think I just screwed something up here. So let me just readjust. But there's another article, and I was trying to look that up so I could bring that up. I'll probably put it in the again, in the Mastodon, that Thomas Swazi, who, if you're like myself, you watched a lot of Simon Rosenberg leading up to the election, who I thought was really smart and really sharp and knew his stuff and got it wrong like a lot of people. But he patted himself on the back for them helping to bring Thomas Swazi to win that New York race and flip a seat from Republican to Democrat, thanks to his efforts. Thomas Swazi believes that the Democratic Party needs to work with Trump, right? So If you're somebody who thinks that the Democratic Party is equipped to defend democracy against fascism, you have made a huge mistake. It's time to start building your own party. And I know there are Republicans who have left the Republican Party over Donald Trump, and they think that they're never Trumpers. They think that they can rely on Democrats to fight back against what is coming. To be a Democrat is to be always and continually disappointed in your party. But continuing on, so this is from the Washington Post, and I found this absolutely fascinating. And I don't know that it's getting enough coverage or people are talking enough about this. But this was on the 9th, and this was something, or is it the 9th? No, this is the Christmas Eve this came out. And it is, again, more evidence to me of the love scam aspect of this. But hope in the age of Trump. And Trump won the election, but he had shown no interest in helping Trump voters who elected him. If he did, he would hire average, everyday white guys for his cabinet. There's no loss of average, everyday, qualified people who are not billionaires and trillionaires to work in his cabinet. But no, remarkably, Donald Trump has filled his cabinet with a bunch of billionaires. He hired billionaires who, if you watch my last video, are against DEI and have brushed up on race science to appeal to the Trump voter. I went into that whole thing on my last video about the attacks on DEI and how it turns out this issue over H-1B visas turns out that these tech bros, there may be a little bit more to their racism than just average everyday racism. All of a sudden, what do you know? He's not against immigration after all. Donald Trump isn't against immigration. What do you know? He's against poor people coming here. What a surprise. What a surprise. And so is Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. His rich friends are also against that. Why? Why do they want more H-1B visa holders to come here? Well, as I said in my last video, one of the things you would have to know about H-1B visas is that they cannot, if you come here on an H-1B visa, you cannot protest, you cannot demand anything, you can't go on a picket line, you can't do anything that a normal, everyday American worker can do. And it's a great way to get cheap labor. And it's a great way to get really labor that is very skilled in the tech industry, let's say, for example, and not have to pay tech wages. So this is what they have done, what Ramaswamy and Musk has advocated, because they're all for this. Look at my last video and I'll talk a little bit about that. I'm sure you'll see online tons of articles on that who are written by the left, and even by the right. But what they're advocating for is basically no different than what the farmer who needs these folks who are coming over the southern border to come here to work, their labor, meat packing, restaurants, ride share, restaurant, both in the back and in the front end. Just name it. Name your area of business that is not a billion, $trillion company, but is more of a mom and pop operation, cleaning houses, cleaning buildings. They want that cheap labor. If you're a business owner, you want cheap labor. And Donald Trump and the conservative racist right hates that. They believe that those jobs should go to Americans. And Ramaswamy and the rest of them have decided they're going to go along with that narrative so that they can get their vote. But once they now are in power, now they're going to instead get jobs, do the same thing, but for the tech industry, bring in workers from overseas, China, India, parts of Europe, maybe parts of Africa, who knows, and take those jobs that would normally go to Americans because they know that those workers cannot unionize. They can't form a union. So what the Trump voter has instead of assurances, instead of a history, instead of any of that, all they have is hope and luck. And they hope in this article that Donald Trump won't do what he said he will do. This is from the Washington Post. This was December 26th, not Christmas Eve, but the day after Christmas. And it says, after backing Trump, low-income voters hope he doesn't slash their benefits. And again, you'll find this article in our Mastodon, in my Mastodon. So, and it says, Trump carried Pennsylvania's city of Newcastle by about 400 votes, becoming the first Republican presidential candidate to win here in nearly 70 years. More than 1 in 4 residents live in poverty, and the median income in this former steel and railroad hub ranks as one of the lowest in Pennsylvania. Newcastle's poorest residents weren't alone in putting their faith in Trump. Network exit polls suggest he erased the advantage Democrats had with low-income voters across the country. Now, low-income voters who voted for Trump say that they are counting on him to keep their benefits intact, even while his cabinet picks and Republican lawmakers call on him to reduce federal spending. Federal benefits have helped keep residents afloat, and today that safety net is deeply interwoven into daily life. The 8.5 square mile city includes 10 public housing projects. About 60% of the houses in the city are rental properties, and federal housing vouchers help countless families afford rent. Many residents also receive Medicaid and food stamps. It's a very depressing area. So if our funding goes away, and I have not heard it will, but if it were to go, we would be in some serious trouble, said Greg Palladina, superintendent of the Newcastle Area School District. Lynn Ryan, chairwoman of the Lawrence County Republican Party, said Democrats lost the support of Newcastle residents over their handling of illegal immigration and foreign aid. She said Trump was a skilled politician whom low-income voters found would be honest and relatable. Let me just say that the euphemism here, skilled politician, he's a liar, right? We know that now over H-1B visas. He's a liar. And he lies straight to your face, and he doesn't equivocate, and he's very good at it. And people believe liars, and people who will believe you if you're someone who will lie to their face without blinking and is pathological about it. So that's what makes for skilled politicians. I just wanted to point that out. Continuing on, Steve Tiller, 59, receives $1,600 a month in Social Security disability payments and $300 in food stamps to support himself and his son. Tiller, who said he is unable to work after suffering from minor strokes, still drives around Newcastle with a Trump flag anchored on his bumper of his SUV. Tiller said he's confident that Trump and the GOP leaders will reduce spending by cutting the fat out of government and not slashing benefits. It's not cutting benefits programs. It's cutting the amount of people needed to run a program, he said. They're cutting staff, which could actually increase the amount of the program that we get. I just want to note that there's nothing in Donald Trump's plan that is that specific. There's nothing in Doge, which, by the way, Fareed Zakaria does a call out to Doge as if this is a good thing, that they're going to actually be able to cut the fat for government. This is the reason why there's such fat, right? We don't talk about the poor whites. We usually talk about poverty. We're talking about blacks. But poor white people take in certain states, like red states, taking an enormous amount of government funding. And they're praying and hoping that Donald Trump and his team, particularly Musk and Ramaswamy, will hold back on the amount of slashing that they do. And these folks who are low information voters think that there's so much fat there, that there's so many people that are getting rich, that's why it's bloated. Not that people themselves who are getting these programs and the benefits that come out of it are the ones that are really causing the program to go up and up. Someone who has had many strokes and can't work anymore and still has to feed a family, that's the reason why these programs exist and are so bloated. But anyway, continuing on, again from the article, Newcastle residents who didn't support Trump said that they are dismayed that their community appears to have voted against their own interests. I've said this to somebody recently. I've been watching the Netflix series Squid Game, and if you haven't seen it, I'll just say this to not blow anything. 1 and 2 are the same way. There's a scene in the show where the participants are allowed, once they realize what the game really is, they're allowed to end the game, and there's a vote. And it has to be more for than against in order for one side to win. So in order for the game to end, more people have to vote for the game to end. And there's this scene where after people realize the horror of this game, that they take a vote and people want to continue the game. And the side that wants to end the game is in total shock at this. That's how I feel about the 2024 election and reading this stuff. Total and utter shock. Like, didn't you just experience what we just experienced? That's the kind of thing that's going on in my mind when I read these kinds of things and when I was thinking about the election. Anyway, continuing on. So, to the Newcastle residents. As they folded chairs at the Colonial Laundromat, Tom Jones, 86, and his 75-year-old wife, Lottie, said they are already hearing from parishioners at their church who worry, how will they get by if federal funding is reduced? My fear is that they will get rid of Obamacare, and mark my words, this will just be the beginning of their troubles, Jones said. I want to say I told you so. These people who voted for him didn't look at the big picture. But Kathy Davis sat at the smoker's patio in Riverside apartment. She said she is confident as ever that Trump's presidency will benefit her. Davis, a retired artist, subsists on monthly $1,300 Social Security payments and $75 in food stamps. She rents her studio apartment for $383 per month. Asked whether she worries that Trump's agenda could hurt the poor, Davis said the incoming president is far too smart for that. You can't wipe out half the population of Newcastle, David said. We are old and tired and just want to be taken care of. And Trump has too much common sense, so I don't think he's going to do anything to hurt us. So here's what I'm hearing out of this, right? Number one, this is very interesting that he said they just want someone to take care of them. So that's the nanny state. She's looking for the nanny state, something that Republicans are against. And Vivek Ramaswamy has talked about people are lazy. They want to be taken care of. So the people that Donald Trump has put into positions of power are against that whole thinking that this woman has. Second of all, there's this narrative here that just cutting the fat, that he just wants to get rid of all of the fat here, that there appears to be a desire to get rid of and trim the fat, meaning that as long as it doesn't affect my benefits, you can go ahead and screw that other guy over there. You know, get rid of his benefits, get rid of his, I don't care. You know, we supported him. He needs to take care of us. Hurt the rest of them. I don't care. That is part of when I talk about the heart of America being broken. That's what I'm talking about. There is a desire to see other people suffer as long as it's okay, as long as they take care of me and do all right by me. So let me go into this other article. This video is already longer than I wanted it to be, and I got a light shining on my face, so let me see if I can get rid of that. But anyway, so there's a polling and there's this new data that is coming out, and basically the underlining idea here is that when people think of Democrats, what they think of is weak. The Democratic Party is a weak party, and that's a problem. So let me go into this while I adjust things here. So this answers a lot of questions that I think a lot of people have been wondering about. So why couldn't Harris prosecute the case against Trump? Why didn't the Democrats hold the Senate and the House? There are deep-seated problems with the party that I have outlined in previous videos, but we now have data, and I believe the answers voters gave are truer now than they ever were because the election is over and they have no reason to lie. Some of this is internal animosity at the base, a la, again, Fareed Zakaria's attacks on the progressive movement. But much of it is stuff Democrats don't want to admit and don't want to talk about. They perceive the party as weak and cannot defend the country, so they went to a strong man. That's basically the 2020 election, in my view, the 2024 election. Joe Biden was weak. I think Joe Biden made huge mistakes with respect to Gaza, but messaging is more importantly, I think, a huge mistake that Democrats make. They try to run on if Joe Biden screamed, "We're Americans, this is not who we are," one more time, I was going to lose it. This is who America is. Get with the program, Joe. This is who America is. And there is a desire not to accept what America is and who America is. And I think that that was part of the problem that the party had. They could not accept that Americans are broken. Um, and continuing on, how more reason for alarm is hitting Dems after the loss, a report. So let me go into this. And this is from Alternet, which is sort of an aggregator kind of website. It doesn't do its own reporting, it usually reports on reporting. And this is December 24th. Maya Booty, I hope that's her name. She is the reporter on this. And it goes, findings from research conducted by the progressive group Navigator Research shows that Democrats are finding more reasons for alarm after Donald Trump's victory over Kamala Harris. Per the report, 3 focus groups held immediately after the 2024 election and conducted by GBAO, a Democratic polling firm, featured 3 kinds of voters: young men in battleground states who voted for Biden in 2020 and Trump in 2024, voters in battleground states who voted for Biden in 2020 but didn't vote at all in 2024, and voters in blue states who had previously voted for Democrats, a third-party candidate, or didn't vote in 2020 but voted for Trump in 2024. Some ex-Democratic voters call their party weak and say it's overly focused on diversity and elites, according to a news outlet. Furthermore, when asked to compare the Democratic Party to an animal, one participant compared the party to an ostrich because they've got their heads in the sand and are absolutely committed to their own ideas, even when they're failing. Another likened them to koalas who are complacent and lazy about getting policy wins that we really need. Navigator Research Director of Polling and Analytics Rachel Russell emphasized this weakness they see Democrats not getting things done, not being able to actually fight for people, is something that needs to be figured out. She added, it might not be the message, it might be the policy. It might be something a little bit deeper that has to be addressed by the party. So, this is absolutely fascinating in my view. And I hope that you guys find it interesting as well. Again, links to this in the Mastodon. But I think it's very good reading. There are references to Politico, to the full article, to all of the information that that this researcher found from Democrats. So let me give you my final tips and takeaways and thoughts. Absolutely fascinating response from voters. It proves a few things. Number one, there was no way Kamala Harris could have won the election. I'm convinced by that. I've been seeing that for a long time. Once I saw what happened in the House and in the Senate, no way Kamala Harris could have won. This was a rebuke across the board of Democrats. The party is branded as weak, an ostrich, or a koala. Thought those were very interesting things. The old order, the old way of thinking must change. I don't think that's happening. Again, Swazi's statements about how we have to work with Donald Trump shows a lack of insight into what has happened to the Democratic Party. It's pretty shocking, that statement. And this is a guy, again, who people like Simon Rosenberg and others on the left worked hard to get him to flip that seat in New York, to get Swazi in there so that we could get closer to leadership. And he's going around writing an op-ed about how we need to not oppose Trump, but support him. It's madness. Particularly if you understand that this was all a scam and you understand where the country is going to go under him. Republicans and Trump voters still don't get it, but they will in a couple of weeks or in a few months. And it may not be immediate as people think it will be, but within a year or so, people are going to get it. Maybe sooner, maybe it'll take a year, but people are going to get it. And you do not want to be a Democrat who was on the wrong side of this issue. I think both for history's sake as well as for the party. But moving on, I think voters feel that the Democrats are putting party values on the people instead of the other way around. By that, I mean, I think that they are Democrats, and this was one of the statements that they had made regarding elites and following diversity efforts and all that. I think that the people, particularly the people who were interviewed, do not see how efforts like quote unquote diversity efforts are to their benefit and are helping them. They have a view of what's going on with the struggle. For instance, for $15 minimum wage. How could you say that is, if you're somebody who's struggling and a worker, that that's something that you would be against and think that that's the party elites trying to put this in front of you. Diversity efforts. If you're somebody who, particularly if you're a person of color, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever, think that we shouldn't have any efforts to help make sure when you understand that this is a country like Trump, who has filled up his cabinet with all white people and a handful of women, that there's not a desire and not a need to have people of color in, and that if people of color are put in, it's DEI, like they didn't deserve it. It's affirmative action, like they're taking a job away from somebody who's more qualified, like that guy on Fox News, the talk show host who should be head of our armed forces. So, I mean, the disconnect here from the voter, even Democratic voters, not understanding that the values that the party has is in their interest is a huge problem. Clearly, something has gone wrong. And again, going after the base is not the answer to this, which Democrats have done. And then this other part of this about a deep dive needs to go into the lingering effects of the war in Gaza on weakening or negative views of the party. And this comes from both my assessment of, I think, what is happening, particularly with younger voters in the Democratic Party. I think the Democrats had labeled themselves as the good guys because they were for, immigration and treating people with dignity, transgender rights. Those are moral positions to take on. But when Biden refused and even out the doors giving more weapons to Israel, and yet they get no credit for this. I'm going to go into that in a minute. That's another bullet point. And you get two congresswomen in Florida who are Democrats who flipped to the Republican Party because for some reason Democrats weren't enough in the tank for Israel. You've got a big problem here, a huge disconnect here. When you have people who are in the Democratic Party who are Jewish Americans and feel like anyone who is speaking out against Netanyahu, who is a Trumper, and his administration, whom the Israeli people don't like. They want this war ended. They want hostages back. And you feel like that the Democrats didn't do enough to be supportive of Israel? So I'm flipping parties? I really wonder if Kamala Harris would have won had Gaza not happened, had Hamas not attacked Israel and started this whole thing, this war, this massive war. So expect the Middle East to be a huge deal in the next administration. Democratic policy success does not translate into policy wins. We've known that. Democrats repeated capitulation to help Republicans, while good for the country is bad politics. I've been saying this for a long time. Remember, every Republican president in the last 30 years has left the country worse than they found it. And Democrats fix these problems, leaving it better than they found it. But Republicans know how to brand their losses as freedom and the Democrats' wins into socialism. I'm not even going to go into that. I've talked about it almost ad nauseum. I may do another video just to do that again, but anybody who's been paying attention for the last 30 years, going back to, the Bush, the H.W. Bush to Clinton, and then Clinton to Bush Jr., and then Obama, it's just, it is one of the more striking things and one of the most successful things I think a political party has ever done on the right, and the conservative movement has done on the right. But it has cursed them because it has brought to life Donald Trump. I believe Donald Trump exists because the Republican parties had to bend to lying and doing all kind of crazy stuff to make the lives of Americans miserable in order to get back into power, to make it seem like they know what the hell they're doing. And that created Donald Trump, and that created the party that is now a fascist movement, threat to democracy all over. Soul of America's broken. Voters ran to a con man who ran on taking needed government support and hoping he was just kidding. Again, I said that earlier. This is that whole article about people hoping and praying that Donald Trump won't do what he said he'll do. It's just madness. This is more of the love scam aspect of it, right? The person who is dying, hoping that that person on the other end of the internet will do what they say that they're going to do. If they'll keep giving them money, they'll say they'll get on a plane. They'll say they'll come visit them. They'll get in a car. They'll escape from where they're trapped to come be with them. And they keep giving them money, hoping that they'll come through. And it never happens. And they're now broke, and the guy is gone with their money. Just the total scam. Most surprisingly, the voter hopes that Trump will screw the other guy. I just mentioned that earlier, and they think that Trump won't hurt the base. He's too smart for that. Tell that to all the H-1B1 visa hires. So that is where I think we're at coming into 2025. I think that is the interesting future that is coming our way. I think that it is going to be a fascinating time. If you know what to prepare for and what to expect. And let me just say one other thing before I sign off, that I am not rooting for failure for the American people, and I'm not rooting for failure for the country. I am rooting for justice and for the country to wake up. I really am one of those people who believe that we needed to be here. There was no way we were going to escape this. This is defying justice as far as I'm concerned. And America was eventually going to get here, because you can't lie. You can't have a party lying, so successful at lying, so successful at business, and so poisoning the well against the country, against one other party, the conservative movement. I'm talking about Fox News, OAN, so much lying and so much obfuscation, and not have it have an effect, not bring us to today. So I think we are exactly where we need to be. I think that more, not where we need to be, but exactly where we were going to be, where we were headed. This train didn't go off the track some way. This train is going exactly where it was headed to go. And I just hope that people are prepared and that we're smart. I hope you guys didn't miss any of this. And my goal in 2025 is to bring a little bit of my viewpoints, my sensibilities on these things, and hope that nobody misses these important stories that will give us more insight, not just into the party, but where the country is, because elections tell the country about who it really is, where its values are, etc. Thank you for joining me on today's video, and I hope you will see me on the next video. Again, like and subscribe, and click the bell to be notified of new content. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Hey there, fantastic viewers. Eric Darnley Small here, and I hope you're loving today's episode of What You Missed. You've reached the end of today's show, but don't worry, there's more show coming up. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click the bell so that you'll be notified when more content is available. You can also help the channel by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. It helps the YouTube algorithm find new viewers so that I can keep bringing you all this incredible content you enjoy. But wait, there are more ways to support the show. You can make a contribution through the show's PayPal, which goes a long way in helping produce even better content for you. And consider becoming a part of our growing community by joining our Mastodon site at mastodon.vtip.me/@whatyoumissed for more engaging discussions and exclusive updates. And here's something you won't want to miss. Mark your calendars for our live show streaming on YouTube and stream.vtip.me Monday mornings, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Your support means the world to me, and together we're making What You Missed the best it can be. Thanks for being a part of my journey.